Welcome to the Confidence in You podcast, designed to help you build confidence and create positive, lasting change in your life. And here's your host, 𝐸𝐮𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿.
Hi, just a quick note before we get started today. If you would like to watch today's episode, please head across to my YouTube channel, 𝐸𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿. Otherwise, just keep listening. Here it comes now. Welcome back to the podcast again, and today we are joined by the wonderful Mira Claudia. Mira is a life liberation coach and founder of Her Tribe community and events for women. Mira supports and coaches women to prioritise themselves and rediscover greater self-confidence to show up as themselves unapologetically. She lives by the practices that self-care is not selfish, it's necessary, especially as mothers. And when a woman truly heals, has greater self-confidence and prioritises herself, she gives back tenfold to her children, family and community. As women, no matter if we birth children or not, we are all raising the next generation, and when we struggle, so do our children. So let's give a warm welcome to Mira for joining us today. Thanks for being here, Mira.
Thank you for having me.
I can see you're doing some amazing work with women. So please tell us about your journey and how you got to do what you do now.
Well, thank you so much. It's actually such a great question. I was thinking back, and really I think this first started when in my 20s, I was working in a gym at the time. And look, I was a young 20-year-old. I had a lot of the issues that 20-year-olds have, highly self-critical, wanting to fit in. And I found myself working in a gym, and I noticed that, we had women coming in as clients, and no matter kind of how much that they were exercising, you got a sense that it was never quite enough, that they never felt like they could really truly achieve their goals. Or I was starting to witness older women, I wasn't a mother at the time, but really struggled to fit time in for themselves. Fast forward 5 years or thereabouts, and I became a mother myself. I was juggling motherhood, I had a corporate role, and my ex-husband and I had a gym, and I saw the same sorts of patterns that happen. We had a lot of female clients, and again, I just saw and experienced myself this guilt that we have around looking after ourselves. And I'm not going to say I was unhappy, but I definitely didn't have the fulfillment that, I've since had in these last few years. And I found that I really struggled, this expectation that society has and that we can place on ourselves as women to do it all the time, doing it well, looking a certain way, children happy, husband happy, business running on track. And I found that pressure incredibly hard, and I felt like it was just life was a struggle a lot of the time. And, I will say that, I'm not going to criticize myself and say I was a bad parent, but I definitely look back and see how much my internal struggle was impacting how I was showing up for my children. So I guess my driver to work specifically for women was that I recognized through my own experience and through the clients that we had in our business at the time, that as mums, as women, we really do struggle to take care of ourselves and put our needs first. And I really wanted to change that. And I had to change that at the end of my marriage. It became necessary for me, but it was also something that I recognized that I wanted to help other women do, because I don't think we're meant to struggle in this lifetime. And when we do, as you shared at the start, I do feel like our children and our families struggle with us when we're struggling.
Yeah, and I think I experience that with my clients as well. They come to me and they're running so hard that they've got the job, they've got the family, they may have pets that they look after, or elderly parents, or the school, they're doing stuff in the school community, and it's just one thing on top of another, on top of another, on top of another. So it's not just at home with the children and the husband, or the children and the partner. it's the sports, and then it's the school want you to do things, and you have to volunteer in the canteen, and if you want to be engaged and part of all of that, and you've got a job and you've got all these other commitments, looking after ourselves and caring for ourselves comes last. We fall into bed at night exhausted. And for those women that don't have children, it's just as demanding on them, because the expectation then is that they work harder, or that they can do things for their broader family. And it's the same result with or without children. You fall into bed exhausted at the end of the night, but you've done everything for everyone else. Yeah,
absolutely. And, for me, it wasn't until the end of my marriage, which, we'll probably get to, but that I realized how much I had just become the roles that I play for everybody else. And I had a real loss of a sense of self. And in all honesty, I became a parent in my mid-20s, and I probably didn't fully, truly understand who I was then, and what was really important to me, and what my value was in the world. And then add the roles that I began playing as mother, a wife, co-business owner, ex-person out in the community. And so when a lot of that changed, I found myself going, I don't really know who I am anymore. And I think this doesn't just happen at the end of a marriage. Mothers, we go through this transition where we've been women and we've maybe had a particular career, or we've been in work, and then the transition through motherhood. And if we take a step back out of corporate for a while, or into different roles, we can lose a sense of what are we actually, what are we here for? And yes, I'm a mother, but what else is there? And that can be a really challenging place to sit, and possibly not one that we acknowledge, maybe until some really big challenges happen in life.
Yeah. I've heard that again from clients as well, that, I'm a mum, but then when the kids go to kinder, or they go to school, or when they get to high school, and then they leave home, and then, well, what am I now? Because I've invested all of me in being the best that I can to give them every opportunity, but in the process I've lost myself. So I work with clients to help them reconnect with self and find self. And it's such a wonderful thing to see people go through that metamorphosis of finding themselves again. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be at a big turning point. If we can start doing self-care and looking after ourselves and reconnecting with self and having that energy, exactly as you said in your bio, that we are better for those around us when we do look after ourselves. But there's this
absolutely
being selfish, but it's not being selfish.
That's right. And it's even that we either think it's kind of selfish, and or we think, self-care, it's just like having a bath, and like is that really going to do much for me? Or we don't value. There's not much value placed on those sorts of things, because they don't necessarily produce an outcome. And in, I guess, my vision of society at the moment is we're really outcome driven. We need to see that we've had success or an outcome for what we do or our time. And so often self-care, the things that we do that are, taking time out, slowing down, are not really seen as value. And that's the narrative that I want to, change for women, is that actually the time that you take out and invest in that, you actually get back tenfold, not just for yourself, but other areas of life.
Absolutely. That recharging, it's like trying to drive a car that's on empty, right? Mm-hmm. But we get out and push the car rather than stopping and filling ourselves up. We just keep pushing through. And how many times have we heard, we just got to push through? But taking that time to stop and recharge is so vitally important. So you are creating some amazing programs and workshops. What led you to jump out of corporate? You said that you started in corporate. What led you to jump out of corporate and start your own business? Because that's a pretty big step.
Yeah, look, it was pretty massive, but it kind of felt organic as well. And I know that's a bit of a buzzword, but I guess really the major turning point, or the pivotal point for where I am now was the end of my divorce. And that was in 2017, mid-2017, sorry, the end of the marriage. And look, it was a complete life upside down moment. One week we were about to build a house together. You know, we'd moved out of our property that we'd owned. We were planning to build. We had a business together, 2 children. And literally in a matter of a week, the relationship was over. And it's like the rug of life had been pulled out from under me, and I completely hit rock bottom. And through the next sort of 6 to 12 months were some of the hardest months that I've experienced in life. And as I touched on before, I kind of had this realization that, you know, this life path that we were heading down was no more. You know, the family, the way we were living, the lifestyle, the business. And I felt incredibly isolated, also very, very lost. And I enjoyed the work that I did, but it really didn't truly light me up. And I'd always felt, and this had been before children, that there was more, that I had more that I wanted to do. And I've been, I guess, a person driven to have purpose. And I know that's a bit of a word as well, that feels like something almost intangible. But it was really that life upside down moment that I guess created this complete and utter change, where I had the opportunity to make a change. And there was something that clicked for me about 6 months after the separation. So still, while I'm pretty in a lot of grief and emotion, that I decided that the end of my marriage was not going to ruin me, and that, you know, I would make this situation work for me as opposed to against me. And so I jumped into interior design, which sounds completely left of field, but it was something that I'd always wanted to do. And I thought, okay, this is the time. And it was really, truly through that study that I happened to get exposed to something called the Gallup Strength Test, which showed me my innate strengths. And I had some career counselling at the time, which didn't show me anything I didn't already know, but it helped bring to my attention actually what I'm really good at. And, you know, over the next couple of years, as I started to really claim and own what I was good at, which fundamentally is talking, like it. But I have a real gift for seeing the potential in other people and being able to communicate and engage in a way that really helps them. Mm. It was almost like the dominoes started to line up. I saw how I'd had this interest, and I'd actually enrolled to do psychology before I had children, and I stopped because I fell pregnant. But, you know, in my corporate role, coaching became possibility, and we were doing coaching in the corporate setting. So I saw how my strengths and talents were going to be aligning in this direction. And I guess, you know, coaching was how I was doing coaching. I'd seen how I'd been coaching in different ways through roles in the past anyway. And it all just kept evolving. And I think it was in 2020, through the lockdowns, where we all experienced a lot of isolation in Melbourne and in the world, that what really landed for me was how important community was. And so my business started out as me running women's circles under my brand, Her Tribe, and that's what started in early 2021, with the intention that I would eventually privately coach. But, you know, honestly, I wasn't in my confidence as a coach at that point. So Her Tribe was a really good first step for me to start running spaces for women, circles or events for women, again, just to help women come and choose themselves, for me to be able to share my strategies and my tips to how I had been managing as a single parent, juggling study, juggling work, all the things, and, you know, gifting over those things that had really worked for me, and also, you know, bringing together the idea of community and connection, which is so incredibly important for women, and we really lost that in 2020. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Bounced around a little bit, but it was really that that big life upside down moment that gave me the opportunity, and that's how I saw it after some time. It was an opportunity, and I made a conscious decision that that ending was going to be an opportunity as opposed to continue to impact my life going forward.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing, that we can go through traumatic events in our life, and they're awful when they happen to us at the time. But in hindsight, we can look back and say that, well, if that didn't happen, then I wouldn't be here, or I wouldn't see things the way I see them. So it changes. Those traumatic events can change our view on the world and can also allow us to open up and look at things differently. And
Totally.
that opportunity and going and exploring yourself, like if your marriage hadn't have broken down and ended, then who knows where you'd be, probably still running a gym and living in a house. But now that you're impacting so many other people's lives through your women's circles and your coaching programs that you offer and that you run, and helping others to be able to navigate through that fog of those times when relationships do break down, that you just, when you're in the middle of a trauma, you can't see or think or process clearly, and having someone help you unpack it and then be able to see with a little bit more clarity around, well, what does the future hold? Because sometimes we can't even see that far in advance when we're in the middle of it.
Look, absolutely. And, you know, I do see there's a kind of general story and narrative about being a single parent, and that can be, there's just like level of guilt and shame. And that's actually how I started on social media. I just thought, no, we've got to talk about the opposite. There is benefits to this experience. You know, again, I guess this is probably my ethos is, you know, truly believing there is opportunity in every challenge for us, and it's that we get the chance to actually take that. However, on your own, that can be very hard. And I felt very isolated. I didn't have anyone going through separation at the time. I'd been a mum for the first time and not really having many friends going through motherhood at the time. And then lo and behold, divorce happened. And I was again, you know, in that situation where I really didn't have other people around me. And in speaking to other women that have gone through separation, particularly with children, they mirror this same experience, this feeling of isolation. Their friendships all change. And so part of the programs that I've run, particularly around this topic, is group programs, because it gives women the ability to come together and share in their experience and feel like they're less alone in that particular phase of life, whilst also empowering them and inspiring them that this massive life change does not need to be the end. It's actually just the beginning, and they have the option to thrive as opposed to just survive or just get by, you know, even as a single parent, which can be seen as a really limiting experience for a lot of women.
Yeah. So you said that you became a mum in your mid-20s. If you could go back and give your 21-year-old self a piece of advice, what would that be?
Yeah. When you put it like that, it's like, oh, that wasn't actually that much earlier to when I did become a mum. Look, it's really simple. I thought about this, and the simple advice is embrace your curls and spend time getting to know yourself. So my hair is, I guess, an example of embracing yourself as you are, because, you know, I'm kind of known for my curls now. I get so many questions about them, and yet I truly have only properly embraced them since the end of my marriage. You know, before then, my hair, I'd either straighten it or it would be up, but I really rejected it. I didn't really love it. And in truth, it's because it wasn't like everybody else. You know, I wanted the straight hair. I wanted what I saw out there in this media and social media. And yet now it's such a part of who I am, and it really reflects to me the little girl that for a long time I'd lost touch with. And that was this little girl that loved to dance. She loved to play. She was called a chatterbox. You know, she was a talker. She was a performer. And so, you know, my hair is, I guess, a representation of something that we often reject within ourselves to be liked, to fit in. And yet when we embrace our true elements of us, where, you know, we are showing up in a vibrance that you can't bottle, can't pick up off the shelf, you can't get from colouring your hair or changing it. So yeah, that's the advice to the 21-year-old Mira.
Embrace your curls. I love that. So with your new role as a coach, what is a common myth about what you do in coaching?
Look, I think because of the area that I specialise in, which is, I guess, working with women around life change, a lot of, going through a separation, our immediate thought is that we go and see a psychologist. And by no means am I suggesting that there's not a place for that type of therapy. But I think there is this assumption that coaching is just for people in business or sport, that coaching isn't for emotional challenges, and that I really need to know what I need before I start with a coach. So there are three, I guess, myths I want to debust. So coaching is for all areas of life and for all times of life. I've had coaching at different times in my life. Coaching is forward-facing. So different types of therapies, talk therapy can really be about the problem right now, whereas coaching is about moving forward. And absolutely, coaching can help with emotional challenges, depending on the style of coach that there is. And lastly, a great coach helps you get the clarity through asking really great questions to help you discover what it is that you need and the steps to take. So you don't need to know a certain amount necessarily before you start. The one piece of advice that I do have is that, you know, when considering coaching, it's working with someone that you really resonate with, that there's something in their story, in what they share, that really speaks to you on a deep level, that you feel that you can relate to or that you can trust, because the coaching client relationship is somewhat intimate, and your coach is like your biggest cheerleader in a way. So, you know, you want to have that resonance with them. So definitely it's not just for business and or for a sport. You know, coaching can be in different areas of our lives.
Absolutely. And coaching is exactly everything that you've just said. It's forward focused. The coach is there to help you get the clarity, and most importantly, connecting with a coach that resonates with you and that you can trust is absolutely vital, that you find the person that's right for you. So I recommend to people that call me, I say, look, if I'm not the right person for you, there'll be someone out there who will be. So please go and find that person and interview them. I tell them, go and have a look on go searching on the internet, find 2 or 3 or 4 people that you resonate with, and then do the 15-minute, 30-minute call with them and pick one you like. You know, that's absolutely vitally important, that connection with the coach-client relationship. And a good coach will also say to a client, I don't think you're a good fit for me, if they're not feeling it, and they'll recommend someone else. And I've done that, and I've had people do that for me as well. And that's why our coaching networks are so vitally important, that we can do that referral and that cross-fertilisation for the right fit, which is really good.
For sure. Yeah.
So Mira, if I had to ask you, what's one lesson that your job has taught you that you think everyone should learn at some point in their life? What would that be?
Oh, so I had so many I wanted to share. But the one that landed was around change and around this notion that life happens to us. Because if I touch on, at the pinnacle and the real breaking point of my separation. I was in the place of why is this happening to me? You know, and when we're in this place of why is this happening to me? Life is happening to me. This isn't fair. We are sitting in a space where we're actually going to not really be able to take much action. So it's recognizing that life is a massive game of change. Change is occurring all the time. Some of the changes we bring about, so we might decide we want to start exercising. So that's a change that we create. However, life is changing constantly, and I remind us of the year of 2020 and 2021, probably the most global, epic set of changes that occurred. So if we take the approach that life is happening to us, we are in this state of victimhood, and it's not to, you know, discredit the impacts that, you know, because some people do have big impacts on our lives. However, it's in order to shift that and in order to really, truly move forward and move out of a difficult change that occurs, we need to make that change to, okay, rather than this is happening to me, what can I do now? How can I respond to this? It's happened. How can I see in this that this is happening for me? And in the space of 5 years, a very, very messy end to my marriage and the end to the family that I so deeply wanted as a child. You know, the family unit of the mum, the dad, and the children. You know, I in 5 years am now in work that truly fulfills me. You know, my parenting has changed dramatically. And look, parenting, you never get it fully right, but I know that it's improved along the way.
Yeah.
And, you know, that could only occur for me to have made the decision to not let that situation impact me, and that I would look at what this situation was providing me. So that is the one that I want to share. It's not life happens to us, but life happens for us. And how can we respond to the change or the event in order for us to make something of it?
Yeah. And I think it's important that life is full of emotions, right? And some of them make us feel better than others, but we still need to feel and experience those negative, I don't like calling them negative emotions, those emotions that don't make us feel great, right? So that hurt, that anger, that shame, that guilt, all of those emotions, they're there for a reason, and we need to feel them and work through them. And for me as a coach, it's helping people be able to sit and feel, but not stuck in those emotions.
Yeah.
Because they're very valid emotions, and if we try to push them down, they'll just erupt like a volcano at some point in the future. So if we can process them in the situation that we're going through, and it might take, you know, days, weeks, months to process it, but knowing that we will come out the other side, and that's where the coach can help you with that. Process your emotions, feel it. You've got to feel it to heal it, right?
Yeah.
And then what can we do with that? Now that we've felt it and we've acknowledged that that was a pretty awful time, what now? That's happened, and I felt bad and awful about it.
Yeah.
What now for the future? So thank you for sharing that, because I know that when you spoke about the end of your marriage and you said, you know, sometime later you did interior design and then you did coaching and now look where you are. So
I just wanted to add on to in terms of the conversation around emotions, because that's actually a key thing that I talk about with clients as well. And I want to give a real example of this in terms of coming back to the point we make around when we struggle, so do our children. So I look back and see the times where I have been incredibly emotional and needed to be. They're very relevant, you know, things that I needed to process with the end of my marriage. Lots of different grief, lots of anger, hurt. And there is a difference between when I was trying to hold it back. And in those first 6 to 12 months, I was really trying to hold it back because I didn't want my children to see me struggling. And yet I was struggling.
Yeah.
And I actually disconnected from them as a result of that. And they actually had less of me because I was trying to suppress and hold back a whole lot of emotion that I didn't feel that I could really sit with. And one, because it was really hard. Sitting in messy emotions is hard.
Yeah.
But two, there was this idea that I could not show up like that to my children. And yet I was showing up with it all over me, the energy in the space, to, fast forward where now when I feel one of these emotions, I allow myself the space to feel it and move it through my body. And I also teach that to my children. So rather than the message to them that they don't get to feel those big emotions and that they have to suppress them, I create the space for them to feel it and for them to move through those emotions. And I feel like that's such an important lesson that I'm carrying over for my children, because for many of us as adults in these generations now, we are the byproduct of childhood that told us to be quiet, to calm down, to stop yelling, don't be angry, don't act like that, you're being upset, and that all emotions, as you touched on, are actually necessary. And yet we've been brought up with this conditioning that certain emotions are not to be felt and you put them away. And so when I touch on if we struggle, so do our children, that's my example of that. I was struggling and I didn't have the support or the tools to help me through that. And my children struggled as well. Their behavior was a lot more heightened because they were dealing with heightened emotions that they couldn't really understand either. So that's my biggest why in why I do what I do, is helping women and mothers particularly through that phase, not just for them 100% first and foremost, but also for possibly the children that they have or the children that they'll have going forward.
Yeah. And even if they don't have children, there'll be others in their lives that they're giving to, so they'll show up better for those that are close to them, whether it's their children or whether it's other people, but those that are close to them, and being able to give in that situation as well. Mm-hmm. So you've touched on your experience, which is so you've been so open, which has been fantastic, and that helps your clients. So what feedback have you received, or what is the best feedback you've received from a client, or what is the most memorable change that you've helped a client to make?
Yeah.
Confidential, but
thank you. Yeah. Look, I'll try and make this really brief, but I had a particular client that first reached out to me about attending a women's circle, and she reached out online and she very openly shared that she'd just come out of an incredibly difficult relationship, and was not working because of that challenge, and had really withdrawn from life. She was incredibly anxious at the time. She really struggled to put herself in social settings, and had really withdrawn. She was incredibly numb in life. And so she'd reached out online. We'd begun a conversation through messages, and I kept encouraging her, without any pressure, to come when she felt ready. And look, she started out with doing an online program with me within the next couple of months, and then eventually started one-on-one coaching. And it was through the online program, the one-on-one coaching, that then the change in her was incredible. She's ended up attending multiple circles the following year. She's attended our Women in Business brunch that I run. She describes the biggest takeaways for her is she truly has her confidence back. To be who she is as a person. She'd really felt that at the end of that relationship, particularly because it had been quite an impacting relationship, she had complete lost trust in her sense of self. She'd lost trust in her judgment of people because she found herself in quite a horrible relationship. And trusting in herself, it sounds, a bit broad, but that was one of the massive things that she gained. And she was in that state where she hadn't worked for 12 months. She was wondering what to do next. And in trusting in herself and in having that confidence back, she made the decision to actually start her own business and pursue something that she is so incredibly talented at, which is writing. And she has had all these little wins since coaching that she keeps sharing with me, where she's, had done grant writing and managed to get, tens of thousands of dollars of grants for certain people that she's written for. She's, writing website copy. She's writing resumes for people. So she is now using what her innate gift is, which is words and writing, and she's creating a business in it. So, she didn't come to me for that. She came to me to help her heal from that past relationship, but the flow and effect of what she's gone on to do and how she's re-blossomed back in life and now living life and not withdrawn and, has the confidence to put herself out there again is just, I don't know, I've given a lot of words to it, but it's a feeling.
Yeah. It's an amazing feeling when you see your clients, their spark and their brightness start to shine again, particularly when they've been through traumatic events. And I've had some clients that have come to me for one thing, and then when we talk about something, they open up and then they share a really traumatic event from their past. And we are here to hold space, right? So they can open up and share whatever they want with us. And then through us helping them and holding space and asking the right questions and allowing them to navigate through that, we can't change the past, but what we can do is help them look back on it differently. And to see them shine their light is just so amazing. And it's such a great feeling as a coach to do that. And when they share their little wins, like just small steps that then all build up, and then they're living the life that is truly them and it's right for them. And it's such an amazing coach. And to see them blossom and grow and just slowly that flower to open up is just such a fulfilling thing. And that's why I love what I do and you love what you do, is because we can help.
Absolutely. And it's the ripple effect. I help her. She steps into her genius as a writer and she then helps others.
Yeah.
And, she's not a mother, she's not a biological mother, but she has nieces and nephews and, and what she's overcome for herself, that flows out to, the people that she then goes on to help with her writing, and her friends and her family. So the impact of what we can do in coaching does really have this ripple effect. And again, I particularly as women, because as women, we are the nurturers, we are the life-bringing bodies of humanity. And so the impact that we have when we really do invest in ourselves, when we do the self-care, prioritize our needs and do the healing that we might need to do because of some past events, that ripple effect is far reaching. Absolutely.
And it's so lovely to see that out in the community, that flow on effect. So our podcast is about confidence, and we've spoken a lot about that today. So in one sentence, what's the best advice or a tip that you could give to someone who either doesn't have clarity, because coaching is about helping them gain clarity, they might be facing a setback at the moment or struggling with something, or they might be right in the midst of a traumatic event or a separation or a breakup or some other life-changing event? What's a piece of advice you could give them?
This too will pass.
Yes.
Nothing is permanent. And as I touched on earlier, life is one big experience of change. We are constantly changing as people. I'm not the version of me that I was 6 months ago, let alone 3 years ago, and neither are you. So when you know that really deeply and you can, I guess, embrace it and roll with it as opposed to resist.
Yeah.
Accept that change is a part of life. It's when you sign up for life, you sign up for change. And, you know, each change that you go through that you either create yourself or that life presents for you is an opportunity to rumble with change a bit more, build more resistance, and to make something out of the change that occurs.
Yeah. Resistance or resilience?
Did I say resistance?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess the thing is we can resist change.
Mm.
You know, we can change can be upon us, and we can kind of fight it and resist it, or we can surrender to it and roll with wherever it takes us. That's the two, or the difference for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly right. We can, and again, resisting it is pushing it away and pushing it down and suppressing, and then the volcano happens later in life. So rolling with it and feeling the emotions that are messy, those messy emotions, but to process it, you know, and process it allows us to then heal from it rather than pushing it down, you know, we're pushing it down and pushing it down and pushing it down, then all of a sudden one tiny little thing happens and we explode. And everyone's like, oh, where did that come from? Well, it came from years of suppressing it.
Yes, yeah. And look, maybe if I give an example, you know, and this is possibly one that others can resonate with, you know, when we had our separation, and those first 6 months, I was resisting it. You know, I was fighting for us to stay together. You know, my ex-husband had made this really clear decision that he didn't think the relationship was going to go forward. But I found that I started fighting for the family, fighting for the relationship. And the moment, and that was me resisting the change that was happening. The change, the ship had sailed. There was no amount of anything that I would do to change someone's opinion, right? We can't change people's minds. He'd made his decision. And the moment I stopped resisting it and fighting it and, I guess, hating on my experience, and I actually shifted that and went, okay, this is happening. What is this opportunity providing me?
Yeah.
You know, where this space that's been created, what can I bring into that space now? And study was part of that. Living in Brisbane was part of that. You know, we lived in Brisbane for 12 months afterwards. So that was me resisting and then changing to surrendering. And so much of life happened when I made that shift.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, it's what you went through is very normal. And most people would approach it in that way as well.
Absolutely. Which is why I share it, to show what's possible, you know. Yeah.
Okay. You've shared so many wonderful things with us today. So where can people find you? How can they connect in with you? Where are you at?
Okay. So Instagram, which is mira.claudia.au, is probably the best place. I've got my website, miraclaudia.com, and then I'm Mira Claudia on Facebook as well. Send me a DM. I'm such an open book, as I've shared today. And I've spent many a time just talking to different people through DMs. You know, they've seen something I've shared and, you know, wanted to share part of their experience. So I'm very happy to chat via DMs as a starting point. And yeah, that's the places.
Lovely. All righty. And your programs and your offerings are all on your website?
Yeah, on the website, they're on the link trees, which you can get to via Instagram and Facebook as well. So I have the Her Tribe events, and then I run programs under my coaching umbrella and one-on-one coaching as well.
Fantastic. Thanks again for spending time with us today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to share with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Helen.
Thanks.
And thank you for listening to the Confidence in You podcast. Follow Helen on Instagram, HelenOxford100, on Facebook, Helen Luxford Coaching and Hypnosis, and on YouTube, Helen Luxford. And access more free resources on Helen's website, www.helenluxford.com. Music, Sunbeam by purpleplanet.com.